Hello and welcome everyone to the main event. My name is Lisa and I'm really pleased to be joined today by How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Mita. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Let's just do a quick sound check. I can hear something moving near your mic. So just want to make sure there's no feedback. Yeah, no, we're good.
Perfect.
The background noise has gone. Welcome everyone to the room. While you're settling in, I'm just going to do a little bit of the housekeeping. And for those regulars that are jumping in and getting comfortable, I apologize if you've heard this before. But I think it's important just to set the scene for the next 45 minutes. So the main event is an event we do a couple of times a week. It's a webinar that is live, and we have fantastic guests who really know their area of expertise. And Lindani today is speaking to us all about the Gen Z workforce and how to overcome those misconceptions and really harness the potential of this workforce. So Lindani, we're really excited to be speaking with you today.
Pleasure.
Good to have you here. Now, as always, this is an interactive session. Hi, Camilla. Thanks for saying hi. I'm just going to show everyone how easy it is just to interact on the board. There's a chat box there. Any thoughts, questions, situations you're dealing with right now that you want us to address and give you some thoughts on, please put them on there. Actually, I've seen different guests give each other advice, which I love. So, use the chat box. It's there for you. And we know how precious time is. And the fact that you've made the time to jump on today means you know the importance of understanding a situation and addressing it head on. So make sure that you not only engage today, but also we send a recording of the event so you can share it with your peers or maybe your managers where you want to get a bit more advocacy for this topic in your organization. We keep it to 45 minutes because we know your time is precious. But Lindani and I are also available outside of this session. We're on LinkedIn. You'll get our email addresses, mobile numbers, all of that. So without further ado, I'm going to do one more bit of housekeeping and then we're going to jump in. So our poll today, we always like to do a poll to get a temperature of the room. What are you guys experiencing, thinking, feeling? The question is, so the Gen Z workforce, what's the biggest barrier to success in the workplace? And the options are, and just bear with me, these options are pretty bold and pretty harsh, but let's go through them. Communication, so too much messaging, not enough speaking, lack of motivation in the Gen Z workforce, retention issues, not being team players, or only wanting to work from home. Now, that's not an exhaustive list, so by all means, if there's something that's not on there, pop it into the chat box, because again, we'd really be interested to know what your experience is, and we're going to come back to the poll and try to speak about what is the most common challenge for you and in the workforce. So Lindani, I don't know if you can click on poll and see where they are at the moment, but at the moment it's saying that retention issues are the highest percentage. Does that surprise you?
Not at all, actually. I was actually reading an article, I think from the US. I think Yahoo.com did this research or survey with over 1,000 managers, and the title of that article was "Companies are firing Gen Z employees soon after hiring them." Right. So the notion of this challenge of keeping Gen Z within the workforce is a very, very common phenomenon. It's well spoken about. So I'm not actually surprised that it's coming at the numbers coming at right now on the polls.
Yeah. Well, we're going to cover that and quite a number of other topics. Just a quick question from the room. Sophie is asking if this session will be recorded. Yes, absolutely. You'll get a recording emailed out to you later on today. So don't need to make notes. Just sit, listen, interact. And great to have you here too, Barry, Zig, Camilla. There's a lot of people in the room. It's a popular one. So okay, Lindani, we said we would help start everyone off with overcoming the misconceptions. So, why is this topic important to you? Like, what's made you want to focus on the Gen Z workforce and that demographic in the workplace?
So the Gen Z is a very interesting group because number one is going to be the largest working population. By 2035, you'll have more Gen Zs in the workplace more than anybody else, right?
See, and that's 10 years, and that's not long at all. You think Brexit was nearly 10 years ago. That feels like just yesterday. So we need to be preparing now, right?
Exactly. Gen Zs are like that uncle and aunt that you don't like to, not necessarily like to see or have come to your house, but they will come anyway. So you have no choice but to welcome them in because they're coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, just this year alone, you'll have over 27% of the global workforce being Gen Z. So in the next 10 years, there will be the majority within the workspace. My passion for Gen Z is linked with my passion for young people in general.
Yeah.
So if you look at my background and all the work that I've been doing is linked to developing the younger generation.
Yeah.
So it's a natural transition for me in terms of working again with the youngest generation within the workspace, and supporting them to live life to their fullest potential, but helping organizations understand the benefit that has for those employees, but also for the organizations going long term. So that's
Yeah.
where the drive actually comes from. Just want to see the younger generation win. That's basically it.
And that's amazing. So I'm with you, because having been in the people space, the talent retention, attraction space, and helping great people find great roles, but also helping organizations be the best that they can be through their people, it's what has become more and more obvious is that the distance between the people coming in and what the organization needs is getting bigger. And I feel like management, leadership, there's a little bit of head scratching going on. It's a bit like it's like feeling like there's a brick wall, like banging your head against a brick wall, and a bit of frustration. And the thing is, I'm with you, apart from having 3 children who are Gen Zs, I've got members of my team who are Gen Zs. And if in 10 years, the majority of the workforce is going to be from the Gen Z demographic, every organization out there needs to be on point with how to attract, retain, develop, empower, motivate. Because, and literally, I'm a little bit tongue-in-cheek, actually, because all of these questions I've asked about your impact and negativity, it's all a bit of a myth, isn't it, Lindani? Actually, these are all areas that just need to be reframed and approached in a different way.
So if we were to look at some of these stats, let's just start with the first one, right, on the poll. It says communication too much, messaging not enough, not enough speaking.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because there was a survey that was actually done by Udemy, I think this year or last year, which showed that one of the things Gen Zs value the most from their managers is feedback. Is someone not just giving them something and say, hey, there you go, figure it out, but somebody that would constructively give them feedback on how they can get better. Because one of the realities around Gen Zs is that they are a very driven group of people.
Well, they're working a day job, they're doing side hustles, they're really a lot of passion projects. They've got a lot to give.
They have a lot to give. So, but this notion of the challenges around communication, they don't want to work with people. They want to be solo and do things on their own. Has really been challenged by a lot of studies that actually shows Gen Zs are actually looking for organizations and managers and leaders that would give them constructive feedback that would pour into them. In fact, one of the things they value the most is learning and development. In fact, Gen Zs value learning and development more than any other generation prior.
Yeah, I think. You know what I think the difference is between the previous demographics and Gen Zs? Gen Zs are not accepting substandard approaches from employers. I think all employers set out to have good standards. I think they all want to give good feedback. They want to engage. They want to do leadership and development. The sort of employers of choice and real, go-to best top 100 employers will have all of this down to a T. But it's with Gen Zs, it's a case of they're actually holding the mirror up to the employer. That if the employer doesn't do it authentically, do it well, do it consistently, they're out. Whereas I think from my generation and previous, we accepted it a bit more.
Yes. You know what it is? It's like saying they are a list of generations, the boomers, the Gen X's, the X's that have gone into the workspace. The millennials are in the workplace. I'm a millennial. The Gen Zs they're seeing, because you have 5 generations now in the workplace, right? First time in history, you have 5 different generations within the workplace.
Wow.
So they have perspective. They have a perspective of seeing generations before them in the workspace. They have a perspective in terms of how organizations have interacted with employees over the last how many decades. They have a perspective. And please bear in mind, this is fascinating. Gen Zs are also considered to be some of the most well-educated generation in human history. So they do have, exactly, right? So they do, and it's good to put that into context. You got to remember the world is a lot more interconnected. A Gen Z in England will know more about what's happening in Gambia than probably a millennial or a Gen Xer, for example.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of shared knowledge and collective knowledge within this very generation, and they're very informed. And with more information comes perspective and opinion, right? Which is part of the conversation around them having very, very strong opinion. So you're very, very right. They have gone into the workplace and they're saying, I get it, you pay me a salary. I get it, I am working for you. But at the end of the day, it's also my time. And there has to be some thinking around this being some sort of partnership and collaboration.
Yeah.
Which is powerful.
Yeah, it's about choosing your employer and the employer choosing you, and doing that in a very clear and authentic way that creates that match made in heaven.
Exactly.
That people then feel aligned to each other. And actually, again, I think employers that are doing it right are working on that in the hiring process, being authentic, having, very different people, but like-minded. We're going to come back to the poll. We've got other options, and I think we're going to be covering them off as we speak. But I want to answer a question in the room, which actually aligns with our next area of conversation, which is around what actually motivates, like what are the values of the Gen Z demographic in the workplace?
That's a very, very powerful one, right? I'm looking at the poll saying wanting to only work from home, and I'm cracking up. You got to recognize, right? It's very interesting. I actually came across this stat, and I'm going to do a bit of comparison between millennials and Gen Z because that's quite close.
Yeah.
For millennials, compared to, let's say, even Xers, work comes first. Baby boomers, work definitely comes first. It's work, 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 work. Kids come in to eat when dinner's ready. You get all that historical context and story. Now with millennials, it's family, friends, and then work. With Gen Z, it's family, friends, leisure, and then work.
Right. That's what's shifted.
And that's a massive shift. So that's the first thing to recognize. And you can kind of see where this notion of flexible working comes in all these other conversations, because they recognize that I am not alive to work. I'm not just here to exist as a worker. There's more to me. And that's why they're doing the side gigs and they're doing other things. They're expressing themselves in other creative ways. So you got to understand the fundamental of their thinking in terms of, yes, I want to do this job. I want to go and work in this company. I want to earn a salary. But at the same time, that is just one aspect of my life. It's not the entirety of my livelihood. So that's the first thing. The second thing to also note is that Gen Zs are very conscious about everything else happening around, from the planet, right, to how organizations are creating products, how sustainable are these. In fact, stats have shown that 2 out of 10 Gen Zs would walk away from an employer if they don't have certain values aligned with the environment. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is globally too. So I think having this understanding and having this perception that this group of workers are very intentional. They're very intentional. They know what they want. They understand that they're going into the workspace as a collaborator and as a contributor. And I'm also saying this because someone might be hearing this and thinking, who is this person just coming in from university thinking they're a contributor or a collaborator? I also want to say this. When they did the polls, Udemy did this poll, which was basically looking at how aware are Gen Zs about areas they're not good at, like soft skills, right? Improving their communication, for example, or critical thinking. They rank the highest in terms of being aware and wanting to develop these skills. What you're finding, Mita, is that a lot of the conversations we're having is based on preconceived notions. Yes, there might be some truths to it. Of course, there might be. But what's happening is I think we're over amplifying some of these realities we're seeing from Gen Zs, and we're ignoring another conversation or a deeper connection with these workers within the workspace to understand really what's driving them. What do they want? What is the thing that really ignites them? What are the things that they really want to develop? And I think organizations missing this crucial mindset and openness that it takes to really understand this workforce will just put us in a judgment zone where all we're doing is prosecuting or judging and saying this generation is not ready, they're not motivated, they don't want to communicate, they don't want to do this and that.
Kind of almost like, washing their hands and saying, it's not working, full stop. There can't be a full stop. We got to keep pushing forward. Barry has a comment about doing, it's the difference between doing to someone and doing it with them, like giving them that real feeling of collaboration.
Exactly.
And not feel like a number or a commodity, but actually that they're connected, that they've got some sovereign agency with the organization, that, they're not just, it's that work to live, live to work thing, right? So as you said, we're moving along from working to live, or living to work, to now working to live. And even to the point that, like you said, God, if for Gen Z, we found it in the recruitment part of our organization. We have clients that are in the energy space, and if it's oil and gas, some of our candidates have said no. They don't believe in the fossil fuels and what they're doing to the planet, and they won't put their put themselves in that environment. And I probably hadn't experienced that till more recently. I mean, I suppose about 5-7 years, and that's going to happen more and more. So if we're looking at their motivations, it sounds like you're saying that they want to be, they really want to belong to a clarity and understanding of that company and their values, and they want to develop. They want the feedback, and then they want the investment into them developing, improving those skills. What are you finding is actually happening with employers out there at the moment?
What you're realizing, and this is going to sound so basic and simple, I can't tell you the number of organizations I've worked with where managers don't have simple one-to-one with their team.
Yeah.
So what's happening is
management, right?
Right. So not having one-to-one with your team. One of the things that Gen Z really values is clear communication and transparency. Full stop. That's one of their greatest values. One of the things they actually look for in organizations. So for people that are asking, how do I retain? How do I keep? How do I attract? This is fundamental. They value clear communication and transparency, which kind of contradicts the notion that they can be too soft. They don't know how to take feedback and things of that nature. We kind of contradict some of that. But there's a lot of truth to them desiring someone that cares for them, that would give them constructive feedback, and also that's very just clear and transparent, right? So I do think that one of the biggest challenges is just those fundamentals that are missing. I spoke to a law firm a couple of weeks ago, and one of the challenges that some of the staff are actually having is that the managers don't have time to do one-to-one, or not making time to do one-to-one. So that means the only time you communicate with someone is when things get really bad, is when things are missed, is when deadlines are missed. So you miss out on all that opportunity before or prior to actually get to know what this person is about, get to know what their strengths are, what area of development do they actually need, how do they align with what you are trying to achieve, how can you support them on that journey. But so by the time you do that, or you might never get to do that, it's too late. And that's why we're seeing a lot of organizations, getting rid of Gen Zs or finding it difficult to work with this group.
It's re-engineering, it's refining. You're not going to throw the book out because they're 30% of the workforce, but at the same time, they're going to become a bigger and bigger percentage. And what's really key is that managers have the flexibility and understanding, not just personality types, not just people that need extra support in different ways, but also different generations. And what that's about, Lindani, is actually what we encourage our clients to do anyway, is right at the start, right when you identify who you're looking for your organization and who you are as an organization, get that really clear. Then have that in your interview process, right? Like really bring to life who you are, give them the chance to meet other people, and get those people to be asking the culture and value questions. But none of that will mean anything if you don't continue with that consistency the day one when they start the job, in the induction and onboarding process, and then in how you develop them. And I think that's another thing. I think when I think about the Gen Z community, I think the more they're engaged with, explained the bigger picture within their world, asked to take on projects that are of interest to them, they will then start to compromise and understand, okay, these are some of the challenges of what I do, but these are all the wins. And actually saying, well, what do you think we need? So that's where one-to-ones come in. A lot of people I speak to about one-to-ones, probably in our organization as well, we're very good at, exercising the muscles, because it's what we teach. We've got to be really good at it. And then slowly that the one-to-one muscle starts to get a bit weaker. And recently, New Year, restructuring, and it was a case of, okay, what's your plan with one-to-ones to my managers? And it was like, no, well, we spend all day talking about stuff. And it was like, okay, but when are we going to take that time to step outside of the doing and actually let's do some reflecting and asking your Gen Z or any demographic in your organization, what would help you in these one-to-ones? What would you like us to cover? If they don't come back with anything, let's talk about your progress, your learning and development, what social and political issues that are on your mind right now. What are we doing as a diverse organization? A lot of managers think that's all the soft stuff. It's not. That's the powerful stuff.
That's the powerful stuff. Yes.
You're doing the work 100% of the time in your role anyway. And you can do a one-to-one monthly. They don't have to be weekly. I think that's another misconception that, we've got to sit for an hour every week. No, that's not. You can even do it monthly. So there's so many ways that you can start to create that structure where people feel seen, heard, valued, understood, and motivated, and therefore developed.
Yes. When you think about this, right? I was having this conversation the other day. When a business wants to market or sell to a customer or client, I used to do business development. You will go out of your way trying to understand the needs of that customer. You will go out of your way trying to understand the needs and how you can support that potential client. You will adjust. You will ask questions, right?
Yeah.
But what businesses are not understanding, your number one customer is the people that work for you.
We are so on the same page on that. Yeah.
Right. So if you treat your workers the same way you will treat your customers, which of course would then mean that's how they would treat your customers in reality, you'll give yourself an opportunity to build a relationship of understanding. And it can go both ways too. So I think what it is that, and this is very fascinating when you look at the history of it. When Gen Xers came into the workspace, a lot of these things that are being said about Gen Z was also said about them.
Okay, it's just a generational perception that each one has.
Exactly. You will always have a generation older saying you guys are too soft. You had it. You're having it too easy. It's not the first time we are hearing these statements and these sentiments, and I think that sometimes as people or as managers or as businesses, we sort of think the only way people can get to where we are is to go through exactly what we have been through to actually get to that particular place. When in reality, sometimes when you get to the end destination, you're supposed, as a manager, as a leader, as a business, reflect and say, hey, was there a better way? Was there a better way for me to get here more efficiently, safer, wiser? And if you start having those conversations, then just maybe you might be open to welcoming somebody in who sees a different approach, who wants to embrace a different way of doing things. And then you can bring that mentorship element, that support element, and meet them where they are and go with them on a journey. So I think it's quite fascinating to see how different generations see or view other generations that come after them, and not necessarily be open to understanding them fully, which you would do in those one-to-ones, which you would do in those catch-ups, which you would do in those interview processes, for example. But then just sort of go ahead with making these statements and sort of dance into the same music that sort of puts all Gen Zs in one box.
Yeah, for sure. Barry comments about back in our day, this is how we did it. And I think, like human nature, people are afraid of change. And yet it's the change that brings the opportunities. We could, let's just look at AI. Give that to me versus a Gen Z. I reckon a Gen Z will look at our world and be able to identify straight away what could be where AI could add value. May not, they'll probably know an app that can jump in and start doing it. Whereas we look at it from one perspective and they look at it from another. So, almost let's work to their strengths. you know?
Yes, and you got to think about this, right? So I always say, so there's one thing we do in my business. The thinking is, if businesses start to see their staff as athletes, they would have a completely different approach. If Manchester or Liverpool were going out there recruiting players, you wouldn't want them to get a 70-year-old player coming into the team. If a 70-year-old player is coming in, you say, okay, that's going to be a coach, that's going to be an advisor, that's going to be supporting. You see the thinking around it? Yeah. And you would say, bring somebody young, i.e. the Gen Z, for example, right? Yeah. Because what? Because they're hungry, because they're new, because they have a different perspective, they have energy, they have passion, they also have speed. So now what's happening in the workplace, which I think is amazing if tapped into, is that you've got these different generations all in the workplace, 5 different generations all in the workplace. And you've got a generation there that can really add value in terms of becoming a mentor and becoming that coach and supportive figure. And then you've got a younger generation, the Gen Z, that have energy and passion and fire. So if the coach kind of can drive and channel some of that fire, an organization can achieve a lot. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but how are we going to open the hearts and minds of the generation before to overcome the frustration and fear, perhaps, that is manifesting when looking at Gen Zs and, you know, how they engage in the workforce versus, you know, you've got the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, like willing to work all hours and, you know, going into the office 5 days a week, and you've got the Gen Zs kind of saying, yeah, I'm going to work from home, thanks. And all of a sudden it starts to become they obviously don't care about the company and their job because they're not coming in. But I guess it's opening them up to understanding that people add value in different ways doesn't make it better or worse. Is that what how do we do that?
I think that's a really powerful question. I think that there's definitely a thinking around finding the balance. So you want your employees to come into the workplace. Yes, I get that. A lot of Gen Zs are not necessarily saying that. Of course, one of the things they value is flexible working, being able to work from home, being able to go into the office. In fact, a study shows that not every Gen Z actually wants to work from home 5 days a week. They want the blend. So that idea of having the blend is great. But think about it. How many organizations have you been in, right? And you look around and you ask yourself, why would somebody come here? Why would a staff want to come here? So it's not just about bringing people in the office. You also have to ask yourself, what am I bringing them into the office for? Because if they can get the job done on their laptops at home, if you're saying they should come into the office, then what are you bringing them into the office for? Now you're talking about, do you see what I'm saying? You're talking about collaboration. Okay, how does that actually look like?
So many employers, when I speak to them about their hybrid journey, I've got a lot of employers speaking to me in the first month saying, we've been doing 2 days, we want to increase it to 3. Now, you wouldn't think that's such a big deal, but you have to go through the process of getting people to get work up to that. And some, again, different generations will be like, yeah, that's not a problem. Others are like, oh, okay, you know, it's more challenging. But it's like, it's getting them to explain what is the benefit. You know, they talk about collaboration, but it's almost like creating an environment. Do a brainstorm, like get everyone in a room and say, right, for the first half an hour of the day, we're gonna have coffees, croissants, and chat. Let's establish, you know, what we want to do, a few topics, and just get everyone to talk about it. All of a sudden, people are communicating, they're feeling the energy of each other, they're feeling the benefit. It might not even be something that needs solving today, but it just shifts up the energy. So
yes, and when you think about this way, right? You ask yourself how many organizations, even, you know, a lot of organizations are talking about going back to work. You ask yourself how many organizations are actually asking their staff, what will make you want to come back to work?
Yeah.
What will make you want to come back into the office? And put options on the table and have that collaborative discussion. It will give you information. Instead of just sort of reverting back into what we did before. But you also got to remember this: during lockdown, it's really the younger Gen Zs are just coming out of university, right?
Yeah,
they did their university online, they did their A levels online, right? So there's that element of what's also happening around, or what has happened around, that's also shaped a particular group of people. So I think for me, the first thing is, yes, bring people back to work, but what are you really bringing them back to work for besides the job you think you're paying them for, right? If it's collaboration, what are you doing to create that energy of collaboration? If it's learning, what are you doing to enhance that? Are they meeting mentors? Are they having, one-to-ones? What are those other things that you can do that will motivate somebody to see it's worth me actually getting on the Piccadilly line that's really extremely slow and crowded in the morning and actually go into the office? I think these are some of the real conversation that would really help organizations get the best out of their staff, get the best out of Gen Zs.
Yeah, I love that. And it takes time and effort. It doesn't have to come from HR. It should come from the managers. There should be some, allowance that every team does it in their own way. Maybe they do some big collaboration stuff, but also the teams can find their own way of creating that. It can be for the people, by the people. It doesn't always have to be leadership led. Just create an environment where people can have that.
Exactly.
It's interesting that retention is the highest scorer in the poll, but communication is equal alongside. This is a big thing because my generation, we were always about picking up the phone or meeting face to face. I think Gen Z is doing that. Their go-to approach is usually asynchronous texting, messaging, emailing, or chat. The chat, the chat box in the corner of the Teams chat. Like, what is the answer for an employer? Should they be encouraging them to pick up the phone more, or should they be saying, well, okay, is it actually affecting the quality of the work and the quality of engagement? Like, what's the answer to that?
The first question is, what are they picking up the phone for?
Okay.
Are they picking up
the phone to ask a question that you want answered in real time? I'm being devil's advocate here because I know that when we're in the office collaborating, we can solve challenges within half an hour that might take a day by the time everyone's given their feedback on it. So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. So basically, when you're saying picking up the phone, you're saying welcoming the idea of communicating outside of using, let's say, technology, or using a phone, or using WhatsApp, whatever the case is. I don't think that the conversation is more around how can we get them to shift away from thinking like that. Gen Zs are digital natives. That's just their playing ground, right? I think the conversation in terms of how do we shift them from that, the conversation is how can we introduce them to other forms of conversation based on our company culture, based on our company needs? Because I can tell you this now, the company culture is what's going to influence if people are going to be using technology to communicate, like texts and emails, or if they're going to be walking across the table and say, hey, I've got this conversation, or I've got this question I need to ask. It really just comes back to that. And you got to think about this. The easiest way to communicate in an environment that is not so welcoming, because you got to realize Gen Zs know how people perceive them.
Okay. Yes, because of social media and all this negativity.
So can you imagine you being a Gen Z? So for anyone that's in this room that's not a Gen Z, can you imagine being a Gen Z, going into a workspace, thinking that people are thinking this way about you without even giving you a chance to know you? Why would you then walk across your desk to go and talk to Mita or Lindani asking certain questions when your manager probably hardly sees you one-to-one, when you don't have a coach, when you don't have a mentor, when you don't have constructive feedback, when you're only spoken to maybe because you made an error, and when you're told how soft you are? So the easiest way to actually communicate will be the best way to hide. Just use your technology, use your phone, use your emails, right?
That is so powerful. And Dani, that's actually like, I've been through so many emotions and realizations hearing you say that, and I've never thought of it that way. And yeah, it's obvious. And we now have a responsibility to create a playing field where there are no preconceptions, and for employers to say, listen, there may be preconceptions out there, but not in here. You turn up on day one, I take you at face value, and you take us at face value. And that's where we start the relationship, right? Exactly. Wow. And I can tell you one thing now, speaking from experience of having a 20-year-old, my son is 20, he is on the phone talking pretty much as long as he's awake. And when you think about Gen Z's messaging, what I've realized is he'll never respond to me on WhatsApp, but if I'm phoning him on Snapchat, he will pick up the phone. It's almost stuff like that. It's like almost saying it's understanding what you can bring together that works for everyone as well, and not shying away from a working environment that does adapt a little bit and does look outside the box for ways to communicate that everyone can buy into. You know,
Exactly.
I've just connected like the fact that I've got a very talkative 20-year-old to my team on the ground. They'll always pick up the phone to you, but they won't necessarily pick up the phone when you call. Sorry, they'll pick up the phone when you call, but not necessarily to call you. So again, it's like almost understanding the individual. I think that's what I'm taking away from this, which I think
and no, it's very, very powerful. I always say this. You know, we can have all these general sentiments about a group of people, about a generation within the workspace, but any wise manager would stay away from it and would simply do the hard work, which is the fun work. Get to know the people you're bringing into your organization.
Yeah.
Because if I get all academic about it, there's so many nuances to Gen Z. There's race, there's class, there's gender, there's so many cultural upbringing, there's so many other dynamics. So the worst thing you can do is take all of these people and put them in one box and try and try and address them with one paintbrush. I think what organizations need to do, they need to take the time and sit down and as part of their culture, embrace the new. Think about how do we embrace the new. And I know you and I spoke about this before, about what's next for this organization, what's next for this business, where do we want to take it? Well, if these are the conversations you're having, you need to make sure you're having conversation with the people that would need to take this somewhere, if you see what I mean.
So yeah, it's so powerful. It's everything I think we've always taught in management training and, you know, professional development of your workforce. And really, we're talking about Gen Z today, but actually there's no difference to how you approach it. So actually understanding their motivations, their values, communication styles, it's about having the conversation. It's about getting under the skin of what makes them tick, what's in their DNA, aligning when you recruit and hire to make sure people have similar value systems, and then celebrating them and keeping them alive and feeding back on that.
Yes.
Lindani, time is flying. I want us to move on to training and development. Now, again, retention still sits up there with one of our biggest challenges. And we know already that high attrition rates, usually people don't leave a bad company, they leave a bad manager. They feel unsupported. When it comes to training and developing and unlocking this full potential, where does a manager start with a Gen Z member of the team?
I think that's a really powerful question. I think it's very simple. I break it into three things. And this is the thinking. Develop awareness. That's the first thing. Awareness about your staff, awareness about yourself as a manager. Like, what are your strengths? What are the things you're really, really good at? What are the things that really matters to you? What are the things that you're working on that really needs to happen? Have an awareness, right, on your path, but also have an awareness about the staff that you're managing. What is their strength? What is their need? Where are they coming from? When I say where they're coming from, what other experiences do they have that you think you can tap into, right? Yeah. So that's the first thing. The first thing is having that awareness. The second thing is being clear about your destination. Where are you trying to take your team? I always ask managers, where are you trying to take your team? Are you trying to take them to the championship?
Yeah.
Or you're just trying to go to the kebab shop? If you're trying to go to the kebab shop, that's going to change your approach and change how you deal with things. If you're trying to take them to the championship, then it informs your approach, because you don't take players to the championship unless you know them, unless you have a relationship with them, unless you're clear with them with what your expectations are, vice versa. And then the third part is knowing your destination. So having an understanding of what does that destination actually looks like building the vehicle to get to the destination. So you have the awareness stage, the first part, knowing yourself, knowing your staff. Second place is knowing exactly where you want to go, being very clear about where you want to go for yourself, for your team, for that person. The third stage is understanding what vehicle do you need to build to actually get there. Now, as part of that vehicle you need to build, from the awareness stage, you would know maybe we need to work on Mita's communication skills. Maybe we need to work on Mita's programming skills. Maybe we need to work on how Mita shows up at work. Maybe we need to understand more around Mita's drive, right? So once you develop that awareness, you can now shift to saying, this is the destination we want to go to. And then now you can say, this is the vehicle I need to build. And that vehicle you need to build is where people like yourself come in where we help managers and organizations build the vehicle to get them to the championship or to the destination that they're actually trying to go to.
And then you can define specifically what are the skills and the systems that they're good at, what are they okay at and need maybe some coaching, and what do they not even know? You don't know what you don't know, right?
Exactly.
So what is it that we need to make available for them to embrace, to experience, and to start getting good at? And
Exactly.
so, and I think that, again, it's actually leadership and development for everyone, that there has to be a awareness. I love that awareness, because I think another thing that employers can be guilty of, managers, and again, when I was an inexperienced manager, I definitely did this, which was that I expected this person to be good at everything that they needed to be good at. And what I have evolved in our management approach now is, well, let's build on the strengths. What are they exceptional at? And let's spend more time in that space. And what the things they're not so good at, let's get them doing this and seeing how else we can deliver that bit. Because you're just doing good time and good effort and good money after bad, trying to get them up when they're already up on so many other things.
Yes. And also, if you want somebody that knows everything perfectly well, hire a consultant.
Yeah.
They come and they go.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to build for the long term, if you're trying to grow, there's nothing better than having somebody who is open, like the data have shown. Gen Z is very open to learning, very open to feedback. There's nothing better than bringing in someone who is open, a clean slate, that maybe doesn't have the most experience in the world, but has enough purpose and has enough reason to be where they are, and understand where they would like to go as individuals. There's nothing more powerful than that if it's tapped into.
Yeah. I'm excited, actually. I came into this, aware, of course, because we all talk about it and we have the challenges. But actually, I feel like this session has been a huge reframe. Barry, thank you for your feedback. Barry saying wisdoms and insights shared from both sides, from the room as well as from Lindani today. Lindani, I want to sum up by getting your thoughts on, people have come into the room today because this is an important topic to them. It's either impacting their working environment, achieving targets, or having a happy team. Like, what would the practical steps be for a manager or an employer to start putting into place? What would they say the top 5 steps that a manager can take to get more aligned with their Gen Z workforce?
I think the first thing is get to know them. The first thing is remove all of these stereotypes and preconceived notions about a group of people that are very dynamic, very diverse, very complex. I think that is always going to get in the way. People don't listen to what you say. People feel your energy of what you don't say.
Yeah.
So remove. So the first thing I would say, just remove that. I would, and then the second thing I would say is genuinely take the time to care about the people that are working for you. Genuinely take the time to care about the people that are actually in your team that you're managing. Try and understand what their needs are. Understand some of their challenges. Understand what drives them. So I think, again, coming back to that awareness piece. And then for you as a manager, because you know where you wanted to go to, right? Ask yourself, what are some of the skills? This team player of mine, because we keep saying team. A manager is not a manager without a team.
Yeah.
Right. This team that I have, and this place I'm trying to go, what do I need to make this team so we can go there together? And then once you start having that conversation, then you're going to understand what those needs are. And then you can start making a request through your HR team or whoever's responsible for your learning and development and say, these are the areas that I really think is going to add value to my team. Do a skills audit. I always encourage organizations, do a skills audit. Bring the job description, bring in ideas of where you want to go, do a skills audit. What are some of the things that you need to do as an organization or as a team to get you to point A or to point B? What are those missing elements? What are the strengths that we have, and how can we utilize some of those strengths, and then work on the areas that will need improving and will need sort of expansion in terms of knowledge and development. It's a very simple framework, but that is the thinking I will encourage any leader, any business, any manager to sort of approach this issue with.
Yeah. And I would add one, which is get feedback from your Gen Zers and your members of the team. So ask them,
just like you do customers.
right? See, we always talk about staff as internal customers. You know, if they're not going to feel supported, empowered, and valued, how are they going to go out and make your external customers feel the same, right? So we start with them. They're the most important. And if we get it right with them, they will go out and be huge ambassadors for your world.
And advocates, yes.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So ask them, you know, what do we do well? What could we do better? What would you like us to start that we're not doing at all? What project would you like to take on to add value?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't all have to come. I think a lot of managers are afraid that this is going to create more work.
Yes.
But it's the feeding fish versus teaching to fish, right? Actually doing this work empowers them.
You know, one thing that's really, really powerful for me. So one thing I always say to managers is, and this is a tough one, how many times do you get to ask your team, what do you need from me to be your best?
That's it. Simple.
Because once you kind of had that exchange, you said to somebody, what do you need from me so you can give me your best?
Yeah.
Then you can have a conversation about what does that best look like. And then not only that, because now you have made yourself, you've opened up yourself to be accountable and kept accountable, because now you're asking a question that you're looking for an answer that you'll have to, sort of hold yourself to. It now puts you in the position to also hold the other person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Because then you get on to the next page, which is collaboration and alignment and sharing a value and sharing a goal. And all of a sudden they're coming to you and saying, hey, this is where I'm at. I want to do more of this. I want to do more. And I think also is, don't be afraid of the financial implications of learning and development. As much as there are paid courses, you do them, I do them. There is a lot out there that is complementary. The webinars are a great start. Look at our library. We've got 5 years of webinars, go and share them with your teams. If they're saying I'm interested in this, or I want to learn more about that, look, there's so much free available insight and knowledge, at least as a starting point, because it still shows that you're interested in their learning and development and want to support that.
Yes. And I want to say, before we end this, for anyone listening, one of the top priorities for Gen Zs is learning and development. In fact, they care less about being recognized and being acknowledged compared to any other generation.
Wow.
That is at the bottom for them. Their number one is learning and development. So for anyone listening, just with that understanding and what the data has shown, this was a survey done with over 6,000 Gen Zs. Use that to your advantage and find a way to add value to the people that are working in your organization.
That's priceless and a real mic drop moment, Lindani. Thank you. We're over time. I've actually taken us outside of our promised 45 minutes. Thank you to everyone in the room that's taken the time to come along today and make this topic an important one. Something, hopefully you've taken something back to your world and can start having positive impact. Lindani, thank you so much for coming along and sharing your insights. I want to do another one of these with you in a few months. This is just the beginning of this topic.
Anytime. It's a pleasure.
All right. Look out for the recording, everyone. The poll results are there. And remember, Lindani and I are both available outside of this room for anything you might have needs or want support with. There's so much positive feedback in the group. So thank you, everyone. And I'm going to say bye for now.
Amazing. Take care, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.